Josh here, Commander today, Raid Shadow Legends. Welcome to the video, guys. Glad to have you all here today. Today it's gonna be, you know what, I was thinking about doing another kind of rare, my favorite rares, or I was even thinking about potentially doing a rares to take to level 50 type video. Like, what rares do I like at 50, but I don't like at 60? If you want me to make that video, I'm happy to go ahead and do so in the future. But what I thought about instead is looking at a couple of these rares that I had on that list. I was like, you know what? I've never made a video talking about the best rares for the end game. So we all know the super obvious rare champions that can ride you till the end game. Really, I think the list is probably one, maybe a couple others you can make the case for.
You don't know what I'm capable of! Come on, please!
But of course, Coldheart is the best, right? She's used in hard dungeons, in everywhere in the game, right? Or I should say, every level of the game, man. The end game, the mid game, the early game. Coldheart is the answer to all of your problems. At least she feels that way when you're lucky enough to unlock her. And if you don't have her, hopefully you do at some point soon. But then there's another whole category of rares. And I guess you could say, I don't know, do you guys look at any more honest answers only, right? Do you look at Apothecary and like maybe a Reliquary, like those type of champions, maybe an Heiress for like a clan boss team? Do you look at those champions still as like S tier end game champions? I do not.
As a joke, I mean,
Right in front of me.
I don't, but I look at them as like S tier mid game and early game champions. So no, not a knock on them, but they've added a lot of champions to the game over the 4 years since that. I would probably consider them end tier, end game top tier champions if I get my words out today. So they've added a lot of free champions and stuff like that, like along the way, right? But with all that said, there are some champions that I look at, rare champions that I look at as specifically just insanely good in the end game. And the end game that I'm talking about is really Secret Rooms of Doom Tower, right? Like that is the most end game content possible in Raid, I guess, aside from like, I don't know, what, Shogun's Grove or something like that. But some of the most challenging, not this particular rotation, but on these hard track, right, they have all these rare only secret rooms. I made a whole video about these. In case you didn't watch that video, I'll give you the quick rundown. But essentially, these secret rooms, rare attack champions only, rare magic champions, rare spirit champions, rare HP based champions only, rare, they have like rares for everything, it feels like. And these are the most challenging secret rooms in all of Doom Tower because it's rare champions only. And there's 6 rare champions in the game that I absolutely love for the end game, for Doom Tower in control builds. And these are the only 6 rare champions in the game with AoE attacks on their A1. So we can throw them in a stun set with Fearsome Presence and make them the ultimate damage plus, more importantly, control to stun lock the enemy teams and get you through those waves. So right off the bat, before I name any of them, can you name?
If I knew, I wouldn't be asking. I mean,
how many of the 6 can you guys name? I think there's one like super obvious. The rest, maybe not so obvious. And I've maxed out all 6 of these champions. I love them all. And what I'm going to do, guys, I'm actually going to show you the build that I use on all of these champions before I unveil the quick list. I'm not going to spend too long, going over all these champions in depth. But I wanted to show you one of my personal faves. And he's kind of one of the newer ones on the list, and it's Abyssal, right? So Abyssal has on his A1 AoE attack, has a nice 30% chance of placing at block buffs, which is really good for, like, you know, if you go against a man-eater team or basically anybody with unkillable block damage, Valkyries, you name it, right? So the block buffs on the A1, even a 30% chance, 35 with sniper, is worth it. Like, I love this dude. Plus, the rest of his kit is actually pretty good too. So you have an option with a champion like Abyssal. I'll just cover Abyssal right now. He's one of the 6 champions, right? He's got the AoE, block buffs, 2 turns, 30% chance, 35 with sniper. He's got a heal, 15% heal on the A2. It's not bad for a rares based on their HP, but it's not bad on a 3-turn cooldown. And then I really love his A3. It's a 4-turn cooldown, weak version of increased defense and increased attack on the same ability. It's not a game changer, but it's a really robust kit for a rare champion. And in a lot of secret rooms, I'll have all 3 of his active skills in effect. But in other secret rooms, I'll just turn off the A2 and the A3 on all of these champions and just use the A1. We'll talk a little bit more about specifics when we get to them. Masteries, I wanted to fill it out one time. The masteries that I would go for on any of these champions in a control build before I unveil the other 5. So quickly, I would go defense. I'm gonna get, whoa. I thought we already had all scrolls. What do we have 29 scrolls here?
Sir, are you listening to me, sir? Sir, I'm talking to you.
The good news is I have this same build on a lot of other champions on my account because it's my favorite build in the game. So Soul Bond, here it is. So essentially, guys, it's pretty simple, right? We have a stun set on these champions, 18% of stun. On the AoE attack, on the A1, we get an 18% chance of stun. Keep in mind that stuns and provokes and poisons from toxic and provoke and stun sets don't require accuracy to land, so we don't care about accuracy on any of these champions, unless, of course, we want to land other debuffs in their kit, right? So in the case of Abyssal, well, we do want him to land that block buffs as well, so we do want some accuracy, but the stun set, we don't need it. So this is the build. We can either go with resistance onto improved parry. Now I actually like a little bit more tough skin going into blast proof, but either or is fine. We want to come down with resurgent. We want to come down with harvest despair, with retribution, because we want those counterattacks, right? We want the counterattacks on the A1 for more chances of stunning with the AoE on the A1. So retribution is very important. Instead of getting cycle of revenge, instead I want deterrence. You know what? Now that I look at Soul Bond, I need to redo that, man. That's no good. Okay, guys, so these are the masteries we want. Sorry about that. These are the masteries that we want on these builds. We come down, we get tough skin on defense, we get blast proof mitigating AoE damage, we come down with resurgent, super powerful mastery, delay death, super powerful majesty. Harvest despair is required on all of these champions, on all of these builds, because we get a 60% chance of placing a leech with the stuns that we already have on the A1. Also required is retribution. Counterattack, AoEs, A1, it makes all the sense in the world. And then deterrence, 20% chance to counterattack an enemy when they provide a CC debuff or place a CC debuff on any enemy, okay? So we want the counterattacks on the A1s, and then we want to end off with Fearsome Presence. Increases the chance of landing that stun from an 18 to a 23% chance, which is really, really good. So again, this is the quad of masteries that are super important. These 4 right here, guys. Harvest Despair, we get the heals now from these champions, and the counterattacks, and then up the chances at landing. That's what we want in terms of masteries and builds for these champions. Let's go ahead and show you the other champions. And we just kind of showed one on the screen right there, so we might as well go ahead and do her first. It's Banshee. Banshee is a great control champion, guys. She's got on the A1 an AoE decreased defense. It's a 30% chance. It's the weak version, but again, now we're debuffing on the A1. Even better on an AoE. The cool thing with Banshee is we only have to shut off her A3. We don't want to use it. It's a crap ability. Instead, I mean, well, she has block active skills, but it's a 2-time at random. It's not dependable enough for me to rely on it. But on her A2, it's an AoE with a 65% chance of removing a random buff from each target on a 2-turn cooldown. She's not dealing any damage. It's not important that we build these champions with high crit rate or crit damage. It's a nice to have. It's not mandatory for these control builds. But Banshee is definitely a champion worth looking at, guys. She's a little squishy. She's a little slow, but she gets the job done. AoE, 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 AoE.
Who are you talking to right now?
Decreased defense. It's fantastic stuff. Number 1 is Abyssal, who I love. Number 2 is Banshee, not Frozen Banshee, just Banshee. The obvious one who you all knew, right, is going to be none other than Bellower. So, of course, Bellower's old school, but he's got it, man. His A1, first of all, is amazing. We have a 30% chance to place a block active skills on the A1, so we can lock them out if we don't land the stun with block active skills. We get a double chance to land some sort of a CC crowd control on that A1. On the A2, we get a decreased speed. Another AoE. On the A3, another AoE with decreased attack and decreased defense. man, Bellower is one of the best stun set options inside the entire game. Now, the shame is you don't use a lot of Bellower in the end game because most of those secret rooms are affinity based. And I think there's only 1 or 2 maybe support-only champions, so of course you can use them there. And Bellower is really one of the more useful champions just all over the place as a control champion. Can be a campaign farmer as well, but in the stun build, I mean, he's got it, man. He's got all the debuffs. We want to make sure we're still building him for accuracy, even though the stun will land off the sets. But Bellower is absolutely fantastic. One of the better stun choices inside the entire game. He's got it on the A1, sure. He's also got it everywhere in his kit. The next one is, you know what, let's just stay at Ogren. A lot of you guys may not have heard about this champion, but Roughstone, he's another great option for you guys. He's a Force Affinity AoE on the A1, another Ogren Tribe champion. Round up, attacks all enemies. It's as simple as that, but that's all we really care about, right? He's got the AoE on the A1. Now on the A2, we can just shut it off. We don't need a tender meat, one target, destroy max HP. We don't need it. On the A3, he is ignoring a lot of defense and getting an extra turn if the attack is critical, 50% chance. So some people, myself included, I like to leave this on. Just see if we, because it's a hard-hitting attack, slobbering rush, right? Don't want to be hit with the old slobbering rush. But if we kill somebody, we get the chance of an extra turn, ergo leading into more roundups on the A1 and more stuns. Of course, you can shut off the A2 and the A3 if you want to and just get a chance at stunning, 23% chance every single time he gets a turn. So that is Roughstone. All right, we have 2 others left, right? There's only 6. Now, keep in mind, there's only about 25, 30 legendaries and epics with AoEs on their A1 combined. Like, there's like about 10 or 15 epics or 10 or 15 legendaries, and that's it in the game. So these champions are pretty scarce in a game that has, what, like 900, 1,000 champions going on? There's not that many of these AoEs on A1. It's very, very valuable. At least to me, my personal favorite out of everybody. My personal favorites are Soulbond, number 1, number 2, Abyssal, and number 3, that's tough. Everybody's pretty good on the list, but I love Soulbond too. She's got an AoE. Every single one of her abilities in her kit has an extra 25% chance to inflict a crit, so we only have to build her with a 75% crit rate. That's fantastic, right? It allows us to put crit damage or crit rate on the gauntlets and not have to worry so much about finding the rest of the crit rate. We can build her to deal damage, or just build her all-out control, right? Either way, she can deal some serious damage, and she's one of the better control rares. You know what? I'm just going to say the best rare control out there in the game for my money. The AoE on the A1, on the A2, we're dealing some decent damage, ignoring 75% of the target's defense. It's really strong. It doesn't deal insane damage, doesn't have great multipliers, but still a 75% defense ignore is nice to have. I shut the A2 off, okay? I sometimes shut the A3 off too, but it's also a great control ability. 100% chance of fully depleting target's turn meter, a la Heartseeker, the A3 of Coldheart. Of course, minus all that damage, but again, we have the additional crit rate, and we do have the turn meter full depletion, right? I mean, that's a legendary skill. It's a very, very good kit. But again, for me, I just kind of keep it simple. The multipliers aren't too bad on the A1 either, and if you can min-max her for damage, get all that extra crit damage from the crit damage and crit rate not having to be at 100%, you can deal some serious damage and control the heck out of your opponents with that A1. Soulbond Bowyer is so good. I almost feel like they don't make champions like that anymore, you know?
They don't make anything like they used to.
She was an addition to the game too. I think, what, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago she was added to the game. Very, very good one at that. So was Abyssal. The last champion, we did Soulbond, we did Roughstone, Bellower, Abyssal, and Banshee. Do you guys know the last one? Now, this is the one that I use the most out of anybody. However, the weird thing is on this champion is that I don't use him in the way that we're talking about in today's video. He's my campaign farmer Fellhound. Listen, he's got an AoE with decreased speed on the A1. Again, a 35% chance, but it's a chance. And decreased speed is extremely valuable for control, even the weak version, and he has it on the A1. So Fellhound, heck, you can use him as a campaign farmer. You could even build 2 of them and build one as a campaign farmer. You don't even have to book him if you don't want to, you know, and build the other one as a control champion with that Ravage on the A1, another AoE, the decreased speed. He also has a continuous heal and reflect damage on a 2-turn cooldown, makes him very viable for Fire Knight as well. And then the block damage on an ally on the A3. Me personally, again, I would shut off the A2, the A3 with the AI and the team setup, and I would just make him a stun beast. And he can deal some damage too. So guys, again, these 6 rares, at least keep them in your vault. Maybe use them for faction wars in a stun set to help you get through those more difficult, more challenging waves. But then you're going to use them in the end game as well. So I wanted to kind of flag this for you guys, especially if you're just starting out or in the mid game and you're like, okay, do I use this champion as food? Do I not use this? Like champions like Banshee, Abyssal, Roughstone. Not many people really use those champions in the mid game, but certainly in the end game. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Send some positive vibes, some love your way today if you need it before I let you all go. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care, guys.